This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ephraim Graham. The president's attorney now believes he is in the clear over the payment to Stormy Daniels, but he says there is still a chance, a 50-50 chance, the president will be subpoenaed to testify by Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. Adair Hurd is on this story for us.
With the revelation about the nature of the payments to porn star Stormy Daniels, President Trump's new lawyer Rudy Giuliani told ABC he believes the issue is settled. Giuliani said, "I think the investigation with Cohen largely fell apart, with the loss of the campaign finance possible violation." He said this about that payment on Fox and Friends.
But it wasn't for the campaign. Right. It was to save their not their marriage as much as their reputation.
But later, he also sounded like the money was about the campaign.
Imagine if that came out on October 15th, 2016, in the middle of the last debate with Hillary Clinton.
The new statement about the payment comes after months of denials by the White House.
How are the American people to trust or believe what is said here or what is said by the president?
We give the very best information that we have at the time.
Giuliani insists that Trump did not know all the details of the $130,000 payment to Daniels until, quote, maybe 10 days ago. He told the New York Times that Trump had repaid lawyer Michael Cohen $35,000 a month out of his personal family account after the campaign was over. Cohen had paid Daniels to keep her quiet before the 2016 election about her allegations of an affair with Trump. Giuliani now says he believes there is a 50-50 chance that special counsel Robert Mueller will subpoena President Trump to testify. Mueller has told the White House he could compel the president to testify before a grand jury with a subpoena. Giuliani will continue negotiations with the Russia probe alongside the president's legal team that includes Jay Sekulow and former federal prosecutors about a potential interview with Trump by Mueller and his subordinates. Giuliani wants that interview to last 3 hours at the most. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
And here's a look at some of the other big headlines we're following for you right now inside the CBN newsroom. Thousands of Arizona teachers will now be making their way back to the classroom after a 6-day strike. The state legislature passed an education funding deal ending the teacher walkout. Teachers will see a 20% pay raise by 2020. About 1,500 Hawaiian residents have been ordered to evacuate after a volcano erupted Thursday. The Big Island volcano sent molten lava through the forest and bubbled up onto streets. Emergency officials do not know how long the eruption will last. Meanwhile, dozens of tiny earthquakes are also hitting that island. 3 American Christians detained in North Korea could be released soon. The men have reportedly been moved from a labor camp to a medical facility. This all comes as President Trump prepares to meet with Kim Jong-un for a planned summit next month. The president confirmed last week his administration is working to secure those men's release. You can find more on these stories and others throughout the day at cbnnews.com. Crashes and other ongoing issues with military aircraft are raising questions about the equipment meant to protect our operation. The most recent led to the death of 9 National Guard members in a fiery explosion on a Georgia highway. Some believe years of almost nonstop war combined with lower defense budgets have made regular maintenance almost impossible. Our national security correspondent Eric Rosales is at the Pentagon looking for answers.
As the investigation intensifies into Wednesday's fatal crash of an Air Force C-130, we're learning more information about the aircraft itself. For one thing, it was more than 60 years old. The National Guard plane, which had been undergoing routine maintenance, was headed to Tucson, Arizona to be decommissioned. Now, after the fatal crash, I received a number of emails from you, our CBN News viewers, who want to know, why are all these crashes happening? Is it a lack of training, a lack of funding? So I took your questions directly to the Pentagon.
There's not one single thing you can't say it's because of this. And so we're looking at all these different things. We need more hours, we need better part support, we need new airplanes. We got to improve our procedures.
Statistics show military warplane accidents have spiked nearly 40% over the last 5 years. While top brass admit they don't have evidence to directly connect these accidents to lack of funding, they maintain a consistent flow of money must take place.
I will make the observation that, one, we are training people to the requirements necessary. Those additive hours that people have in the cockpit or doing their jobs are only going to help. So now we have the funds to do that. But that's kind of a brilliant flash of the obvious comment. I don't have data to give you a direct correlation.
I think the funding is affecting the number of airplanes that are ready and the number of hours we can fly. So, you know, we've been at this. I mean, this just didn't happen overnight.
General Neller says government shutdowns and temporary budget band-aids over the last 9 years has taken its toll on military readiness. For example, he told me 20 years ago a senior pilot would have 1,500 hours of flight time. Today, that experience level for the same rank pilot is almost cut in half to around 800 hours. Still, the Navy's Chief of Operations made sure to point out strict regulations will be maintained.
We have been adjusting flight hours. Those are back on the rise with the increased readiness, but we're not sending people into the air in aircraft or pilots that are unprepared for the missions that they take.
One of the bright spots for the military is an increased defense budget of almost $700 million. While that should help improve both training and maintenance, Pentagon leaders want to remind the American public what they and the millions of American service members do is a dangerous business. Eric Rosales, CBN News, Washington.
President Trump has ordered the Pentagon to prepare options for reducing the number of American troops in South Korea. The New York Times is reporting that officials say the recent peace treaty between the two Koreas could diminish the need for the more than 28,000 troops who are stationed there right now. President Trump says decades of military presence has not prevented North Korea from becoming a nuclear threat, and the cost of maintaining them there is high. This comes ahead of President Trump's meeting with dictator Kim Jong-un about North Korea's weapons program. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas apologized for his comments earlier this week. At a major Palestinian meeting, he blamed the Jews for the Holocaust. Following his statements, both Israeli and world leaders condemned his views. As Chris Mitchell reports now from Jerusalem, some are even calling for him to step down.
Abbas's comments came during a meeting of the Palestinian National Council. He said, the hatred of the Jews is not due to their religion, but rather due to their social role. If so, it's a different issue. Therefore, the Jewish problem that was common in all of the states of Europe against the Jews was not due to their religion, but rather due to their social role that was connected to usury and banks and so forth. Condemnation of Abbas's remarks came from all over. Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust memorial, forcefully condemned Abbas for blaming the Holocaust not on anti-Semitism, but for social behavior of Jews who dealt in loans and banking. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted, the Palestinian president again recited the most contemptible anti-Semitic canards. Apparently, the Holocaust denier is still a Holocaust denier. I call on the international community to condemn his severe anti-Semitism. The time has come for it to pass from the world.
Even the New York Times called for Abbas to step down. In an editorial entitled, Let Abbas's Vile Words Be His Last as Palestinian Leader, the paper said Mr. Abbas's vile speech was a new low, and by succumbing to such dark, corrosive instincts, he showed that it is time for him to leave office.
Whether Abbas leaves office remains to be seen. Despite his comments, the Palestinian National Council re-elected Abbas to a new term as chairman of the PLO. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, CBN News is sitting down with Vice President Mike Pence. Hear what he has to say about the importance of prayer inside the White House. Hundreds of faith leaders gathered inside the U.S. Capitol Thursday to pray for unity in the country on the National Day of Prayer. In an emotional moment, Pastor Frank and Cherry Pomeroy, who lost 26 members of their church, including their 14-year-old daughter, in a deadly shooting last fall, prayed against hate in the country. They also told the crowd how trusting God is carrying them forward.
Vision within our family that is stronger now than it ever was before, and it was through the grace and the mercy of an almighty God that brought that to be.
The Pomeroys say from ashes, glory is rising, and they still feel the prayers from around the country comforting them following that deadly tragedy. Vice President Mike Pence tells CBN News prayer is happening inside the White House on a regular basis. In a wide-ranging conversation with our David Brody, he also weighed in on the Jerusalem embassy, Iran, and some vicious attacks aimed at him personally.
Sing louder, sing louder, play. Can you hear? On the National Day of Prayer, Americans of faith had plenty to sing about. For one, a new presidential executive order aimed at ensuring federal cooperation with faith-based groups. On his office balcony, the Vice President, Mike Pence, spoke with us about the new initiative.
This is really about making sure that as we develop policies for the country that we're always making room for those unalienable rights, the free exercise of religion that Americans cherish.
While the White House Faith Initiative is making headlines, it's what's happening behind the scenes inside the White House that is having quite a bit of spiritual impact. CBN News has often reported on the unprecedented direct access between evangelicals and this president. That connection has gone beyond input on policy to include consistent prayer for a president who needs it. Prayer alive and well in the White House as well, not just on the National Day of Prayer. We've heard stories. There's prayer going on inside that White House.
There's prayer going on a regular basis in this White House. And it's one of the most meaningful things to me is whether it's public meetings or not. I've lost count of the number of times that the president's nudged me or nudged another member of the cabinet and said, let's start this meeting with prayer.
On this special day, the intersection of faith and politics takes on even greater meaning with preparations for the historic move of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Many Christians praying for the peace of Jerusalem. What about the embassy? Will you or the president go over to the embassy May 14th when it opens in Jerusalem?
I know construction is underway. I just saw some good photographs of some of the finishing touches being put on. We're all finalizing plans about the American delegation. We'll have announcements about that in the days ahead. But when we open the American embassy in Jerusalem, we will, in a very real sense, end this historic fiction. We'll embrace reality, and President Trump and I both believe that in doing that, that peace in the region becomes more possible.
Iran remains one of the greatest threats to that peace. Just as President Trump faces a deadline on possibly pulling out of the nuclear deal with that country, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a shocking expose. And what about Netanyahu specifically about what he said the other day about Iran lying about their nuclear weapons program? Do you believe that?
The United States has confirmed the authenticity of the materials that Israel obtained that prove that despite what Iran said for years that they had never attempted to develop a nuclear weapon, clearly here are volumes of evidence that prove that Iran was in a headlong rush up into and past the beginning of the 21st century to develop a nuclear weapon. And that is obviously going to color our evaluation of the Iran nuclear deal.
Tough words for Iran. And speaking of tough words,
Mike Pence is also very anti-choice. He thinks abortion is murder, which, first of all, don't knock it till you try it.
Yet another comedian, this time Michelle Wolf, at Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner, taking shots at the vice president.
I'm pro-life and I don't apologize for it. And I couldn't be more honored to serve shoulder to shoulder with the most pro-life president in my lifetime.
The vice president is used to the attacks, such as comments from Joy Behar on ABC's The View making fun of his faith.
But with regard to the critics, David, it comes with the territory. As the Bible says, I count it all joy when I endure trials or criticisms. But at the end of the day, just our focus is completely on the work.
What's next for this White House is always hard to predict. But through it all, Pence still keeps the faith. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Still ahead, from a YouTube viral video to a recording artist, meet Kalante Gavin and see how this teenager is making his mark in gospel music next. A YouTube sensation is now traveling the country promoting his new album and his single, No Ordinary Worship. His story begins in a small town in South Carolina, but it now travels the world. That is why Kalante Gavin is this week's Studio 5, one to watch.
This ain't no ordinary words. This ain't no ordinary song, yeah. The God I serve is greater than the ordinary. So I'ma give them all I have invincible.
That rich, mature voice belongs to 19-year-old Kalante Gavin, whose new album, The Higher Experience, is climbing the charts.
Let me tell a story about a woman with an issue. Had it 12 long years, didn't know what to do.
Kalante's journey to the charts begins a few years ago with this viral YouTube video captured at the cafeteria counter inside his South Carolina high school.
He dried all my tears away. Turn midnight into day.
Do you remember that day?
In the school cafeteria.
Eyes closed, leaning over.
Peanut butter jelly sandwich in the hand. Book bag on in school. Just.
Is that something you did on a normal basis?
No, sir.
You were?
No, sir. It was just.
Take me to the day. What happened?
Man, I'm of course a normal high schooler. It's lunchtime, so of course I'm supposed to be going through the line to get something to eat. And here go, they ask me, "Hey, singer boy, we know you." You know, I was already known around the school to sing, but I didn't always do it. And so the opportunity presented itself, and I'm like, okay. And without even hesitation, I leaned over the school cafeteria counter, and I Won't Complain came out. And I mean, a week went by, and before I knew it, people were reaching out to my parents, and I'm noticing my Facebook messages are going up to thousands and thousands. That's one thing I never forget was thousands and thousands of messages. Like me, my mom, and my dad had to share every day, just going through them, and it went viral. And to this day, I'm literally here talking to you because of that.
God knows what's best for me. Yeah. He knows the best about me. So instead of complaining, I just say, thank you, Lord.
Among the calls, you get a call from Marquise Boone. And tell me what that conversation was like. Marquise Boone is a pastor and record label owner who's worked with gospel artists like Tasha Cobbs, Casey J, and Brianna Babineau.
Man, Marquise Boone actually reached out to us not too long after the video. Because I was young and fresh and not saved for real. And so at the time, you know, my parents were like, nah, you don't need it right now. And I'll never forget, you know, my dad was like, nah, we got it. It's okay. A year went by, and we met a person that was closely connected with him. And he was like, I know somebody. And Marquise Boone's name came across the desk, and we're like, uh-oh, okay, what does this mean? So after my parents and me seeking God, you know, God was like, this is it. Like, now it's time for you to go. And now to go, not just to another platform, just for my music and my ministry, to reach thousands and millions of people, not just from a video, but just in another, you know, another area, another field of artistry.
The God I serve is greater. So I'm gonna give him all I have. I'm gonna give it all I have in
Bright future ahead for Kalante. You can get his album, The Higher Experience, right now, wherever you purchase your music. It is very well worth it. We'll be right back. Weekend is here, and if your future for the weekend includes movies, our friends at Plugged In Online have a review of the film Tully.
Hey, Frozen pizza, awesome.
In the movie Tully, Marlo is the mom of 2 young kids and a newborn. Marlo is also exhausted. In fact, the heavy demand of motherhood has left her feeling bloated and ugly, and her marriage feeling strained. All of which her brother notices.
Do you know what a night nanny is? They take care of the baby at night so mom and dad can get some sleep.
I don't want a stranger in my house.
Get over yourself.
And he decides to gift her with a night nanny, a young woman hired to fill in for mom at night so she can get a bit of rest. Marlo, however, isn't so sure she wants someone in her home, bonding with her newborn. But when a quirky millennial named Tully arrives, her attitude changes.
Hello. I'm Tully. I'm here to take care of you.
This magical hired hand seems to solve everything overnight. It's a miracle. Or is it?
No.
In case you've heard some of the positive things said about this mom-focused mainstream movie starring Charlize Theron, there's more to the story. The film does say positive things about marriage and motherhood.
You're empty. Yeah.
But it's also rife with coarse language, flesh-bearing visuals, and sexual content. So I'll give Tully 1.5 ERP-covered shirts out of 5 for family friendliness. For an in-depth review of this film, or anything else at your local box office, visit us at PluggedIn.com. Plugging you into the movies, I'm Cheryl Wilhelmy. Focus on the Family's Plugged In Movie Review.
And it's time now for your Friday Faithful. I'd like to leave you with this thought. In this world, there are many places and moments to encounter God. But let's be sure that you move from those brief encounters to a daily relationship. With that word, be sure to make this a fabulous Friday. Remember, you can always find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about, and you can find it at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing us, and you can send that to newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll do just that. Hope you have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you right back here come Monday. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.